Hey everyone, welcome to Adobe Live. Hi, my name is Annika and I will be your host today. I am joined with Rich Armstrong from TapTapKaboom. Hey Rich, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing very good, thank you. It is raining outside, but I'm pumped on the inside. Not raining here.
Well, I am really glad to meet you, and I'm really glad to let you all know that we are going to be diving into Adobe Fresco today. Rich is going to show us his line work, his sketch process, and a lot of colors and gradients. So make sure to stick around for that. But before we get started, I want to point out that today we have started a new set of creative challenges with Voodoo Val. So if you were tuning in right before us, there was a stream at 9 a.m. Pacific time. It happens every weekday, so make sure to tune into that. It is all things Photoshop. We learn tips and tricks and a new prompt each day. So make sure to tune in, learn from Voodoo Val this week. And you can also put in your creations on the Discord. We have a community Discord. I think Wade is moderating for us today. He will be putting the links in the live chat. And if you're watching this on YouTube, hey, hop on over to Behance. This is where I will be reading the chat. I will be asking all the questions that you might have for Rich. Now, before we get started, I want to say hi to the chat and let's see who all is tuning in today. Let me know where you are joining us from and what time it is over there. And is the weather nice? I see Wade in the chat, Biola, Anki, hey, hello, welcome everyone. And Rich, do you want to let us into your brain, give us some insight about who you are, what kind of work you do, and what we're going to do today?
Yes, I would. Imagine if I was like, no, I'm actually okay with that. Thanks very much. But yeah, I'm going to keep this short because I could talk about myself for days and I'm not really here to talk about myself. I want to show you how I work. I want you guys to see how I work, ask questions, interact with me. But I do have a short presentation that I'm going to just cover very quickly. And if you have any questions about anything, just ask while we're doing the stream. So my name is Rich Armstrong. You may know me as TapTapKaboom, and I'm a South African. You might pick that up from my accent, or you might be like, you sound Australian or New Zealandish or something. I live in the Netherlands, in Amsterdam, or just outside of Amsterdam, and I have a British passport. My dad is from England, so I'm like a mixture of a bunch of things. A few months ago, my father-in-law had a French car. So sometimes I would be driving a French car. I'd be a South African living in the Netherlands with a British passport. And people are like, I don't understand the situation. Anyway, a couple of other things. I'm ADHD. I was diagnosed as ADD when I was a kid. And I kind of forgot about that until about a year ago. And I was like, does it go away? Like ADD, ADHD? And people were like, no, it doesn't go away. And then I was like, oh, that's why I have, a bunch of trouble doing things and I'm really good at other things. I'm a husband. I am a father. I have an 18-month-old daughter who is just a ball of energy right now. She's just like all over the show. And she said car today in Dutch for the first time, which I was very impressed by.
Wow.
I'm an Amsterdammer. Nice. And also I'm a follower of Jesus. That may mean a bunch of different things for you, but for me, it's just like core to who I am. Then on the non-personal work side of things, TapTapKaboom is something that I set up maybe 5 or 6 years ago, but it's kind of like core to everything that I am. So when I started my creative journey, obviously I did art in school and I've been drawing and painting since maybe since before I could talk. But I did a Bachelor of Arts, which doesn't really equate too much, but I did it in multimedia design. I focused on that. I also did like brand communication and some other theoretical stuff. I came top of my class when I did that. I was like, yeah, I won a bunch of awards. And then I was like, I'm gonna conquer the world. So I became a freelancer and I didn't conquer the world. The outside world is very, very harsh. And I learned a lot about marketing and failure and being a jack of all trades. And then after about 9 months, I was like, okay, I'm going to go work at a digital agency. So I did that. I was employee number 2. And when I started working at this company, we used to roll into this guy's house, very small. We used to have like pizzas every day for lunch, or pasta or something homemade, or from a takeaway place. So I got fat in 6 months, which I wasn't too happy about. But then after about 2 or 3 years, it grew to 25 people in the company. So I have like experience working at small companies all the way to a medium-sized company. I then became a student again. I did my honors in graphic design because I didn't think my multimedia design was too good. So I did graphic design, but I actually built a bunch of apps at the graphic design place, which they were very impressed by. So I didn't really learn too much about graphic design. I just did what I wanted, and they were loving that. At the same time, I went from a digital agency to a startup where I became a UX UI product designer. More about that in like 2 minutes. But I was employee number 1 then, and we only grew to 2 employees. So a founder and 2 employees. And that was amazing. Again, I got to do everything, animating. I did database stuff. People do not trust me with databases, but I did database stuff. I did design stuff. I did animating. I learned a lot. It was a lot of fun. And then from there, when we moved to Amsterdam from South Africa, we started our own studio. We first did product design work for companies in and around Amsterdam and Europe and some places around the world. And then we started teaching, which brings me to this slide. You might be like, so Rich, what have you done in your creative career? And I was talking to Annika during the week, and I was saying like, 15 years in the creative industry is a long time. I feel like a dinosaur at times. And I've gone through like many different careers in my creative career. So I was loving animation when I first started. We did After Effects and Flash when I was at school, and it was amazing. And then when I got out of that and into the real world, I realized nobody's gonna hire a kid basically and pay him a lot of money to make their film or their piece of awesome animation thing. They're gonna hire an animation studio, probably in, I don't know, San Francisco, New York, somewhere like that. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna make websites then. And that's how I became a freelancer. I was a freelance web designer, website maker, whatever. That thing has changed. That title has changed over time. So
wait, I have a pressing question here. Is there anything that you haven't done? Is there something that you haven't?
Guys, I hate InDesign. InDesign is the worst thing for me. Magazines, print stuff. I'm like, like I hate printers. I have a good friend who's a printer. I'm like, just make it look nice for me, please. If anything goes into CMYK, I'm like, don't like that. So that's something that I haven't delved into too much, but I have written a book which is in print. So I don't know how to answer that question.
Yeah, someone in the chat says I also feel like a dinosaur, which is
a
nice.
dinosaur.
Yeah, might steal that.
I love that.
Might steal that.
Although, like, some of my lecturers, like, they say, yeah, we did airbrushing. I'm like, what is airbrushing? They're like, that thing in Photoshop? They're like, really nice, like, airbrush brush. I'm like, yeah, we did that with an actual brush. And I'm like, wow, that's awesome. So that's why my lecturers were impressed by me making apps for my graphic design honors degree, because they used airbrushes when they were studying. So yeah, I did interaction design at an agency. I was the guy between the HTML front-end people and the designers and the back-end people. So I got a lot of experience doing everything, and I love that. I did jQuery, Flash, JavaScript kind of stuff. It was awesome. When I went to the product design as a product designer, when I went to the startup, I did UX and UI. I just jumped into the deep end. I had no idea what was happening, what was working. I had to design mobile stuff, all of a sudden doing apps and mobile websites. It was really cool, but really intense. I had no one to learn from. So I got a lot of experience in that firsthand, like, oh, this doesn't work because of these particular reasons. So from there into product design, which I guess is a better name for UX, UI. I design products holistically, and I'm still really passionate about that. But then I found teaching, which I've been doing for the last 6 or 7 years, primarily on Skillshare. I have my own online school. And man, just the feedback that I get from that is just phenomenal. Like people being able to send their kids to school, people picking up jobs, people like finally feeling like they can conquer just their desk, you know? Sometimes they're like, I've designed a website, or I finally picked up that dream job. I'm like, yes, that is awesome. I also finally got used to seeing myself on camera, which has helped me do this kind of stuff, which has been great. But yeah, and now I'm doing live stuff and creating on camera, which is just, it's like the next level. It's like, oh,
Absolutely.
I just made a mess up with my tongue, and sometimes I just forget words, and that's okay because it's live. Where if it's on like a pre-recorded, class, it's like stop, re-record, whatever.
I think that's the beauty of it too. Yeah. All of it live is the beauty of it too. Everyone's really excited. Why don't we dive into your work and show everyone what kind of work you do, and then just get started into the work we're doing today.
Awesome. Which brings me to the art.
Let's do it.
Core to my art is play, exploration, and experimentation. And at the beginning of this year, I had a desire for authenticity. Which, can I show some work first, or should I just dive straight into it?
Absolutely, yeah. Let's see your work.
Okay, so this is my Behance, however you say it, Behance.
Behance, yeah.
Behance, yeah. I struggle to say this word, but I've been doing this thing called the Doodleverse, and this is probably like the latest iteration of it. It's very colorful, lots of bold colors. Sometimes there's gradients involved. This is a particular piece that I donated funds for Ukraine. And there's birds, there's weird characters. Sometimes there's a lot of religious iconography, inspired by a bunch of different things. So I've got a couple of those. And then this piece here is the Visual Deluge series, which is very abstract and intuitive kind of mark making, primarily done in Fresco. And so on day one, which is today, I'm going to be doing a Doodleverse piece, which is something like this. I have a kind of plan, which I'd like to cover. And then on day two, I would like to mix it up between the Doodleverse and Visual Deluge, and try something new, experiment with those two things. So I guess what I do is doodling all the time, sometimes more intuitively or abstractly, and sometimes more intentionally. So here's Fresco, one of the best apps in the world, because it's on an iPad, because you can just save it and it pops up into Photoshop just like that. You can send stuff to Illustrator, and yeah, it's the best because there's tons of different brushes. I'm going to create a new document at 2048 pixels by 2048 pixels. It's not the biggest, but it's big enough for what I need it for. I'm going to basically create a Doodleverse piece that's going to be sold as an NFT, which this is a great size for that. And I can use a ton of different layers without my iPad being very slow, which if I use, bigger documents, that happens a lot.
So do you have all your Doodleverse documents, all your Doodleverse NFTs the same size? Is that it?
Yeah, so they're all 2048 by 2048. Square pieces at the moment for me seem to work really well. And it's a really nice format to try different things and experiment. Whereas if it's a big piece, it's like, ooh, this is quite overwhelming at times. And I've created a couple more big pieces, and it does take me a lot longer. Whereas some of these pieces, these Doodleverse pieces, it takes me between an hour or an hour and a half.
That's
sometimes
perfect.
3 hours.
Everyone in the chat is really loving your work. We have Bruce saying, looks fun. Anki is appreciating it. Viola also loves it. Rin says, I absolutely adore your style. Well, thank you so much, all of you all, for tuning in.
Thanks,
and
guys.
We love that you are appreciating all the work. But let's dive in. Let's get into it. I love Fresco, so I'm really pumped to learn from you. Let's do it.
There's just so much stuff about Fresco. So in the beginning, I'm just going to be using like a pencil kind of a brush. Let me know if you want me to zoom in or
I think we're good for now, but chat can let us know if you want us to zoom in. We can zoom in at a particular location when you're not drawing, just to show you.
Cool. Super. So I'm just with a blue pencil, just going to do some sketching. And for some reason, someone somewhere was like, yeah, blue pencil is good for sketching and doing that initial kind of sketch. And I don't know
Yeah.
why, but I still really like it, along with like a red as well. So I hardly ever start in black,
Black.
but then I do the line work after that in black. So I had this idea of this tree, and this is like a really basic tree shape. And the tree has a bunch of eyes as leaves. And you'll see in my work, there's tons of eyes. And
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure what they represent. Maybe attention, or some kind of treasure or focus, something that's very scarce or valuable. And so in the Doodleverse, pretty much every piece has these. What shape are these? They're not circular. Can you
Leaf shaped,
leaf-shaped
eye shaped,
eyes?
leaf shaped
Eye-shaped
eyes.
eyes?
Probably. I
Yeah.
don't know.
So
But I really
something
love
like
that.
this.
I love the
Yeah.
adding eyes and making the natural elements more humanized. I think there's a term for it, but I love that. I once created a cat with like four eyes, four sets of eyes, and that is so cool to me. And I was like, I should do this more. This looks cool. So
Yeah,
I
there's
totally relate.
yeah, I mean, what's it like? Humanistic, characteristic, animated? There is definitely a term for it.
Definitely.
But there's this collage artist. I think her name is Lola Dupree. She creates these collages of cats and stuff with multiple eyes. They're fantastic. I would highly recommend you guys check her work out. So my idea is that this tree has eyes, and there's probably going to be some birds coming to, steal the eyes, or perhaps protect the eyes from some kind of thief. But then what's fueling this particular tree? And here, what I like to always do is include some kind of what I call the fourth dimension. So a bunch of stars and darkness. And this kind of represents the other space, like some other dimension. The Doodleverse is a bunch of dimensions where there's always a portal to somewhere else. And perhaps like every dimension is like a different world or something, but I don't know. It's dreamlike. So you guys can interpret it however you like, but I think that this could be fueled by this like dark space or this fourth dimension.
Is that how the name came about to be? Doodleverse?
Yeah, so like, people talk about the metaverse now, and you kind of are where you are, right? Like I'm here, but if you put on goggles, or if you're on Discord, or if you enter Decentraland, or any of these other places that claim to be the metaverse, you are where you are, but you're somewhere else. Even if you're on Twitter or Instagram, you're not here anymore. You're beyond. Like this interaction is really weird. There's people from around the world here, but we're not really here, So it's about these different spaces. And then the other day I was like having a look at something somewhere, and what is that like photo technique called? I'm just blanking right now, where you can kind of see two different images in the same image. Does anybody know?
I don't know. I have no idea, but let us.
Like the portrait's black and the background is white, but then you can see like trees and stuff. Double exposure. There we go.
Yep.
So that, like, how do I incorporate double exposure into my work? And I'm like, oh, let's try that. Like, could this be double exposure? So perhaps there could be a gradient over here. So at the top, it could be brown, or there could be these like tiger stripes on the tree, because a tiger tree would be pretty cool, right? And then as it goes down, there's less gradients and more black. Or perhaps these stars they're all the way up, but these are on top of the stars. So that becomes really interesting.
We have a question which is very frequently asked, I would say. So someone in the chat says they've never used Fresco. Is there an advantage to using it to draw instead of one of the other apps? Do you feel that it's more ergonomic, or is it more versatile while using with other apps? is probably the
So
question.
if I had to choose an app, a Fresco would be one or two, just because there are, if I show you the amount of brushes, you'd be like, because these are just the categories of brushes that I'm just scrolling through. There's like 455 brushes just over there. It's just like, what? That's crazy. And that's just pixel brushes. Then you get vector, which is like, vector, that's crazy. So you can have vector here, export it to Photoshop, or export it straight to Illustrator. Like I did a piece of client work the other day, all in Fresco, all in vector, and I exported it to Illustrator and created a pattern. And I was like, this is ridiculously easy. So, and there's motion stuff, which I haven't played around with yet. And these water brushes, watercolor and oil, which we'll get onto tomorrow. And you'll be like, whoa, that is cool. So that is probably why I would choose Fresco. You can have unlimited layers. It synchronizes with Adobe Cloud. You can just pull it into Photoshop. It's powerful. And there's probably a bunch of stuff I don't even know about. I hope that's a good enough reason why you should use Fresco.
Yeah. Absolutely. I'm a Fresco advocate myself. So I completely agree with all of those. And even if you don't want to use any of the Kyle Webster brushes, but who would do that? But if in case you want to import your own brushes, you can do that with Fresco as well. So that's also another reason to use Fresco.
I think Fresco is on the verge of being able to like edit brushes and create your own brushes as well.
I think so. Yeah. I think there was something about that in the upcoming features. They're always adding new features to it. So you can always go ahead to the user voice and also add in your requests. So I feel like it's always growing and adapting to users' needs. And that's what makes it more intuitive. And I love that it's so easy to use and accessible, which makes it all the more, I don't know, easy, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I have this beta Fresco as well, which is next to the Fresco icon. And so there's often new things to try out, which is, super cool. So the release cycles are really quick. It's not like, hey, once a year, we have something new to share with you. Yeah. And if it crashes, sorry, wait for a minor update or wait until next year. It's like, okay, things are changing. Things are progressing really quickly. So I like that. So what I've done here is my, initial sketch. I got a couple of birds here, which I normally include in all of my work. They're kind of like the central character. Maybe you can identify with birds. I'm going to start the line work. So what I like to do here is just reduce the opacity. Can you guys see that? I think so.
We can see that. Yeah.
Cool. And then a new layer. And I will create a bunch of new layers. So if you ever get confused, just be like, what layer are you on and why? And then the brush that I like to use, I have a bunch of favorites, but I've taken this brush called the hard round brush, which is a default brush. And then I think in scattering, I've just scattered it a little bit. So it's still like pretty crisp and clear, but it has like a handmade feel, which makes it more handmade, which I really like. And then I'll go for a black color. And I have this Doodleverse color palette, which is pretty big for a color palette. A lot of my designer friends are like, you have a lot of colors that you use. And I'm like, that's because I create colorful work,
That adds up. Yeah.
So I'm going to start lining some stuff now. And I create the basic outlines first and then add details in later.
Love that. So did you always work with that color palette or did you develop that over time? How did that come about?
I developed it over time. I started with my brand's color palette just because I like that. And then a couple of maybe years ago, I did a 100-day project where it was around web characters and they were really fun and friendly. And the color palette kind of came from there. And then I just adapted it over the last 3 months or so now, because today is actually the end of the 100-day project for 2022. So I've been doing 100 days of NFTs every single day. And I think over the last couple of months, I've added to the color palette. I'm like, oh, I need a purple or a lighter purple or a different blue, or this is a color I never use. So I just remove it.
I love that.
Um,
Yeah. A lot of us limit ourselves with like 5 colors or let's say play by the rules. But I love that you know the rules and still not like modifying it according to your personal needs. That's amazing to see. Did you say
yeah,
100 days of drawing? What is that? Tell us more
yeah.
about the 100-day project. I don't know. I don't know if you guys have heard, but Rich just released his new book about the 100-day project. Can we learn more about that, please?
Yeah, yeah. So I can't draw and talk about this maybe, but it's over here.
Mm-hmm.
You can see it in my face. This is a
Yep.
book that I wrote last year, and it was really interesting to write a book. But every single chapter is a question, and you can see a couple of things over there, and
Yeah.
maybe a chapter opener I'll show you, which is over here somewhere.
Sneak peeks.
So that kind of stuff. This is a Kyle Webster brush that I did in Fresco as well. It's a really cool brush. And every question, I mean, every chapter is a question. It's like, what is the 100-day project? What should I do the 100-day project on? What happens if I want to quit? Tons of these different questions, and it helps you design a 100-day project. And you might be like, what is a 100-day project? It can be whatever you want. But I think the big premise is, what do you want your life to be like? What do you want more of in your life? And then can you do that every single day for 100 days? And it could just be 5 minutes. Like a lot of people, I just want to draw more. Well, you don't have to draw for 3 hours a day. You could just draw for 5 minutes. You could doodle for 5 minutes. You could doodle for 10 minutes. You could go outside and draw a building. Or if you wanted to get healthier, like I want to be healthier. Most people are like, that's a massive thing. But like, seriously, if you try to do it every day for 100 days, you build this habit up, you make it small and attainable to do every single day. And so that's what a 100-day project is. And a lot of the times it's a creative thing, but it doesn't have to be a creative thing. When I say creative, it's like creative, because every single thing that you do intentionally, like I believe that's a creative act, because you're creating your life. You're like, I want to do this. I want to create this life. So that's what you're doing. You're intentionally doing something. That's what I'm doing with this. I'm like, I want to, at the beginning of this year, I felt a little bit creatively dry. Like, I haven't done much like creating besides teaching, which is very cool. But I was like, what am I going to do? Like, I really feel like being authentic. What is me? Who is me? And I thought about, back to when I was a kid. I was like, I actually did a lot of drawing and doodling when I was a kid. And I've always doodled, but never like done it a lot, just kind of here and there. So I just started doodling and being like, yeah, let's do this. And I'd heard about NFTs. So it's like, cool, let's try this NFT thing out. And I started drawing stuff and making stuff and selling them as NFTs. And some of the stuff that I created in the beginning, I'm like, this is terrible. I want to delete it now. But that's the point of a 100-day project, is like you start, and because you have the next day to think about, you're like, I can't spend 3 days doing one day because I've got tomorrow to do. So you almost just get out all of the bad stuff straight away in the first 10, 20 days. And even now it's like, okay, that was a terrible day. I'm just going to post it, mint it, it's done. I'm going to carry on with tomorrow's. And it's a very powerful way to live life and to create. You don't get hung up when you're stuck. You just create through that stuckness.
Would you say that that's like looking at your work objectively and still trying to be able to find your style? Did the 100-day project help you in that way?
Well, I think that I'm not quite sure if I'm answering the question. The style that I have now, this particular style, is far more authentic. Like you can see the stuff in the background here. Like this is what I do in 5 minutes. Like I just love drawing characters and lines and stuff. Then it's like I've never colored in my doodles before, and all of my more illustrative work has been abstract, or I've collaborated with somebody and used their face or someone's face and done stuff on top of that, or I've just made a mess and it looks, for me, like really pretty. But this kind of stuff I find to be really interesting because there's story, there's color, And as I went through the process, I started adding more details and started almost omitting other things that I had doodled before. So I'm like, oh, okay. So I need to put more details on the birds, or if it's a really big bird, I'd like to include what are these things called? An eye bag or something.
An eye
Eyelashes.
bag.
It's
Yeah.
an eye bag. I don't know what they're called.
I don't know.
Um,
Maybe.
so it was a process of like self-discovery, I guess, which has been really cool. So I don't stick with things a lot because I'm ADHD.
Yeah.
And one of the things that ADHD people do is hyperfocus,
Yeah.
which is kind of weird. It's like, so you mean you are all over the show for most of everything except when you hyperfocus? It's like, yeah, pretty much sums it up. So this is something that I can hyperfocus on. Like I can draw this kind of stuff for hours.
Yeah.
I'm just going to undo these legs because I actually know that they're going to go into the black area. And so black on black, just you can't see the legs.
Yeah.
So I'll make them a little bit shorter here.
I love that. Love that your process is so refined now that you can envision the final product and the final piece, and you can modify your line work according to that. That's pretty cool to see.
I have
feel like
learned
sometimes
the hard way.
Yeah, I was gonna say sometimes I feel like I have to redo the whole thing. I'm like, oh, I didn't see that coming. And then at the end moment, I'm like, let's do it again. Let's start from scratch.
Oh man,
In
but that's also a really good process. It's be like, okay, if I had to do this again, what would I do differently?
Absolutely. I know you mentioned that you can draw this for days. So does that hinder your other activities? Do you feel like
Yeah.
how do you find the balance of not drawing? I don't know if I never thought that I would ever ask that, but I feel like I should right now.
Yeah. I work with my wife. She's like, Rich, it's time. I have these things called time timers, which is like, cool, let's work for an hour. You've got an hour to draw. So it helps me stay focused to be like, okay, you got an hour to draw. But also, I'm just going to turn the sound down here in case it beeps in a little while. Also, if I need to do something that I don't really like, then I can use a timer to be like, okay, I've got 45 minutes or 15 minutes to do this. Let's go. So that helps a lot. And my wife does keep me on track. She asks me questions rather than telling me what to do, which helps. It's like, is this really important? Do you want to spend your time doing this? What else could you be doing or should you be doing? And so a lot of creatives have two struggles. One is I want to create, but I can't create. I'm procrastinating. I will do all the dirty dishes. I will clean my room. I will, reorganize my studio. You've probably heard a bunch of stories like that. And then the other creative problem is, well, I'm a creative and I don't do business and I don't do marketing. I just draw. And I'm like, yeah, that's probably more me than anything else. And so I think what I've tried to do is turn everything into like a competition or a challenge to be like, okay, how do I make doing Instagram fun and a challenge? How do I do email and make that fun? So it's like, if I get to inbox 0, it's like, what? This is awesome, And most of you, like,
achievement unlocked.
Yeah, like my wife would be like, I'm always at inbox 0 or maybe 3. And I'm like, the other day, I think I had 200 or 300 emails in my inbox. A lot of them weren't important, but it's just like, well, I was drawing. Like, what do you expect from me?
I have to say, I agree with the challenges bit. I also like doing a lot of challenges just to keep me on my feet and like away from being in the same monotony. So I kind of like to do Inktober. And I know you have like a Skillshare course about that as well, like doing creative workouts. And I really liked how you also talk about like timing your things and just not think about not overthinking what you're drawing and just dive into it. I think that really plays into the 5-minute practice a day.
Yeah, it definitely helps. I mean, now I don't know how to say this, but like comfortable in what I'm doing. But when I started, I wasn't comfortable doing
Yeah.
what I'm doing. And be like, how do I actually draw this wing? And you see right now, I'm struggling a little bit with this wing. It's like, I want to draw a really nice wing. But yeah, if you practice every day, you get better, which is like, of course you get better, but it's the same with creativity. It's the same with design or illustration, line work, gradients, color, like whatever it is, you can set a challenge for yourself to be like, I'm going to work with gradients for the next 5 days or 10 days. And I'm going to
Yeah.
just work with a fixed color palette or whatever. Excuse me. I have a
Love
couple of
that.
fears when I'm on camera. One is burping. The other one is I need to go to the toilet.
That's totally normal.
So,
Those are totally normal fears. I feel like everyone who's ever live streamed has ever always had that in their in the back of their heads. But I love that people in the chat are agreeing. Stony says they have thousands and thousands of unread emails, and Daryl agrees 10K. I need to sort mainly junk. So you're not
10,000.
alone.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, that's a lot though.
so yeah, I think what helps me is like I like creating, but I also like a clean working space, like a
Yeah.
clean studio, a clean inbox, a clean
Yeah.
downloads folder. I'm pretty sure if you've got 10,000 unopened emails, your tabs in your browser are like minuscule. You'll just have like, so
Yeah.
like it feels really good when you just nuke them all. Or if you use something like, what do I use? Let me just check what this thing is here.
There
I'm just
is a
going to use
plugin or an extension for
my
Chrome, I
browser,
believe.
One Tab.
Yep.
It's called
One
One
tab.
Tab. It's just like you go boop and it goes and it just stores them on one page. It's like easier to see them all, but it also, when you look at your browser, you're like, I can breathe again.
Yep.
Like sure, you then pack it up again really quickly, but it helps, So there's this balance between being productive, or for an ADHD person, like being a normal member of society, like, yeah, I kind of have to fit into this. Like, okay, let's be productive. Let's reply to emails. Let's do the things that we said we're going to do. And then being that creative genius, like doing the drawing for 7 hours a day. Like, I wish I could do that. But just being in my little corner drawing, like, that's what I want to do. And it's really fun. But you got to be, I don't know, wise with your time. Like, okay, let's promote myself now. Let's get organized. Let's go find some clients, or let's go find an audience, or let's answer questions. Like I have students who answer or ask me questions, and I'm like, okay, cool. Let me help you out. So I have to dedicate time to that. And again, like timers for that kind of stuff helps a lot. It's like, I've got 20 minutes now to answer students' questions. Let's go.
Yeah.
And that's what I do for 20 minutes. And it helps a lot.
So do you use the timer often for your freelance activities as well? Because as we all know, it's not just drawing and talking to clients, it's also managing everything, invoicing, all of that. Do you do that yourself? And how do you go about it? Any tips about that would be
I
great.
definitely don't invoice myself anymore. My wife is like the admin queen. She's creative, like she can draw stuff amazingly well. She does our social media as well.
Yeah.
So at the moment, I'm trying to give away as much as I can so that I can focus on being creative, class making and drawing. And then for freelance client work, I definitely set timers. For drawing, I literally set timers for everything. Sometimes I lapse and I don't. And then I'll either spend like far too long on a very simple task, like, okay, just research something for the client. And then like 2 hours later, I'm on some Wikipedia page doing some kind of weird research. And I'm like, oh, this has nothing to do with this client. Flip. Or it's like this, I could spend another 4 hours on a particular illustration because like, oh, let me just try this, let me try that. What happens if I add this extra detail? I'm like, no, I've only got an hour to do this. So yeah, definitely use timers for a lot of things. So right now, I have 5 birds, which is quite nice. I could add some in the future. I will add feathers, like these kind of feathers here, but I won't do it right now. I'll do that a bit later
Okay.
because that's detailed work. And if I fill, like here, I'll just give you an example. If I use this as a reference
Yeah.
and I do some filling, and filling in Fresco is amazing. Here I'd have to go fill, 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 fill. Whereas if
Yeah.
I leave out all those details and add them on another layer, I can just fill the whole wing, which is
Absolutely. Yeah.
far
Work
easier.
smarter, not harder, my friends.
Yes. And yeah, I learned that the hard way. So I was like, oh my days, this is going to take me forever to fill all of this stuff. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I love the set
So
as reference feature as well. That is also pretty handy. And I feel like it works both with the raster and the vector brushes as well. So that's neat.
it's amazing. I would take so long to color my work if it wasn't for that.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to do now, I've done the birds, I've just hidden them so I can focus on the tree, is do the eyes for the tree. And I think this will be, I don't know, quite simple to do these. I don't think there'll be branches necessarily, although that could be pretty cool. So I'm going to try branches that kind of look like that. And then I'll erase this area over here in a second or two.
Yeah.
In a minute or two. Let's be honest, I'm not going to take a second.
Yeah. Love that. Yeah. Meanwhile, we're almost 40 minutes into the stream. So if you are watching this on YouTube, just a reminder, you can hop on over to Behance. We have a lot of friends in the chat asking us questions. So if you want to ask any questions to Rich, make sure to hop on to be.net/Adobe Live. And we have Katerina saying admin queen. I like that description. And Ishita saying so relatable to all of the content we have. So love that. Love all the comments that we have.
Yeah, it's awesome. Keep commenting, guys. If you have any questions about, the Doodleverse or my career experience or how to be productive as an ADHD person, just ask.
Yeah, we are open to any questions related to Rich's freelance career or even the art that he's creating today.
Yeah. So when I'm creating these eyes, sometimes they do look a little bit too leafy. And then I'm like, no, I don't want them to look like leaves. I want them to look like eyes. And so I've become a little bit of I don't know if it's an English word, but a fundi in eye shapes, or particularly the Doodleverse eye shapes. Like this one looks a little bit leaf-like, but it can do. Sometimes they're a bit like too oval or too circular, which is like, ugh. So sometimes I spend a lot of time redoing eye shapes or leaf shapes, but I'm getting used to it. Like this one is pretty good.
Yeah, I also noticed that when you were sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I don't really like my eyes overlapping or touching for some reason. Wings on birds can overlap, but
yeah.
What were you going to say, Annika?
I was going to say that I love that you created all of the birds separately, even though they're very similar in the base structure. But all of them look different just because they're hand drawn and they have little qualities or shapes and proportions that are different, which makes them look very organic. So I love that.
Yeah, I am a handmade lover. Like if I do something in Adobe Illustrator, it's like, oh, this is too perfect. Like, how do I make it look more handmade, So if there's anything that I can do to make it more handmade, I try that. Obviously, it can't look like an absolute mess. But yeah, I love handmade characteristics and attributes. And I know there's a bunch of shapes and stuff. Sorry, carry on.
No, I was going to say, do you ever also do traditional handmade stuff just to like unwind? Is that something that's part of your process?
I would love to. I don't have the time for it at the moment. I mean, I do have canvases in my studio that I've recently just started. I have backgrounds like this that I've done. I have pieces of paper around the studio with handmade stuff, but it's very quick. But when I was 24 or something, I quit my job at the advertising agency or the digital agency that I was at. And they were like, no, we want you come work a half day. So I was like, that is great. I'll work a half day. So I could surf, I could read. And at the same
Yeah.
time, my Mac, it died. So I literally just went home from my advertising job and I read and I drew with pen and ink and water. And it was so like cathartic and therapeutic and just not digital, not advertising. So I had a lot of fun with that. So I'd love to get back into that, knowing what I do now about the Doodleverse and colors and things like that.
Love that. Yeah, James in the chat had a very cool question. They asked, "What's the most unusual 100-day project you have come across?"
Oh, there's one at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Is it frowned upon if I use my phone in a stream? I just have to check this out.
It's okay. Yeah, we can look at that. I know Rich also has like a newsletter where you highlight other people's 100-day projects. I actually recently signed up for that, and that is pretty cool to see that we can see not just Rich's work but also other creators, which is really cool. Which reminds me actually that we have a lot of creators in the chat as well. So I would love if you guys can also share your experiences with ADHD and drawing. And if you have any freelance questions, you can always ask us. And we also have another question that I will get to in just a second. Thank you, Jen, for asking that. I will answer that and ask Rich in just a second. So I'm
Okay,
gonna find. Yeah, did you find it?
I've got it. So there's this
Nice.
a student of mine called Tika Lin or Tikal Lin, Tikallyn, and she's doing 100 days of shibari, which is rope tying. It looks like kind of erotic, but it's not, but it definitely looks weird and wonderful, but it's like very colorful and very interesting. And I'm like, how did you even get into doing that? And then doing it for 100 days and convincing other people that you should tie them up with rope. And it looks very intricate and beautiful and strange. And I'm just like, that's awesome. Yeah.
Pretty cool.
So
Yeah. Is
that's
it on your
probably,
Skillshare? Can people find it there?
no, it's just on Instagram at the moment.
Oh, okay.
If
No
you,
worries. Yeah.
if you DM me and you're like, who is that? Please, I'd love to know about shibari or whatever it's called. I'll share it with you.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's probably the weirdest one that I've seen. Like very cool, but yeah, in my opinion, very weird.
Nice. Yeah, it's always fun to see other people's projects as well and get inspired by. I think I found them. I'm not sure if it's them, but if I do, I will share it with you all. But meanwhile, you can follow Rich and ask him if that's something you're interested in.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people who come to the 100-day projects think like, oh, I got to draw for 100 days, or I got to paint for 100 days. It's like, no, you don't have to do that at all. Like some people go without something for 100 days, almost like a Lent, or they stop drinking, or they try be nice to people. It's like, what? Like, can you do that for 100 days? It's like, yeah, that like a lot of people want to be nice people. So they try that out for 100 days. And when you just focus on that every day, you do it for a little bit every day, you become nicer. It's like, of course that happens. But yeah, like that's the thing. Like you become whatever you want to become, whatever you focus your time on or spend your time on, that's what you become. And so the lady that proofread my book, it's really cool. Her story's up on my100dp.com. She wanted to be a mystery novel writer for 100 days, which is like, whoa, it's not just like I'm going to write for 100 days. It's going to be like, I'm going to be a mystery novel writer for 100 days. Like I found that really cool. So for 100 days, that's what she did. And I was like, wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, I love that you can challenge yourself and make it as easy or as challenging for you as you want. So what I usually do with these kind of challenges is I set a goal for myself and think about where I want to be with a particular application or in my journey. which is a creator's journey. So what if I want to experiment with a style, or what if I'm still on my journey to find my own style? So I use these challenges as a way to, one, learn an app or a new feature that I really want to get good at. So let's say I want to get good at the motion feature in Fresco. I will try to incorporate that in every single piece, and also get closer to finding my style. So I feel like having a goal in mind when you're doing these challenges also helps you define the narrative, which is cool to see, and also to look back and like, day one, this is not something I made, and day 100, oh yeah, that is definitely me.
Yeah. It's at different times having a goal and not having
Yeah.
a goal is like perfect. Like a lot of people are like, well, like what do I do? Like, where do I start? It's like, okay, well, do you want to have a goal, or do you want to just do something in
Yeah.
Adobe Fresco for 100 days? And sometimes just having no thing to do helps people. And other times people are like, oh, okay, I definitely need something to work towards. And that's okay.
Yeah.
Like if you start out in this one direction and you're like, whoa, yeah. And then you're like, oh, but I
That
found
looks cool.
this. Like,
Yeah.
unless you had that initial goal, you would have never found that other road that you would then travel down for the rest of your life. Like
Yeah.
if you're just like, I'm waiting for this road, but you're just still waiting, like that's pointless. So sometimes
Yeah.
you definitely need a goal to then go and find something else. And I encourage people to change direction in their 100-day projects when
Yeah.
and if they need to.
Absolutely, making the right adjustments. I mean, don't be afraid to like not make the adjustment as you go, because I think that's really helpful. Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree.
So I'm going to create an empty layer mask, empty mask, create an empty mask, and then just do a little bit of erasing here so that these branches actually become part of the tree. And this is also another feature in Fresco that I really like, is this ability to mask like really easily. And you can see the mask here, and you just swipe to the left and to the right to start working on the mask. And it's like, like all of a sudden, if I just go like too far, if I was using a razor tool, I would then have to, draw another line. Sure, right now I can just undo, but I can also then reveal and just go, oh, it's back. So that for me is like, it's power. And I've learned things the hard way there too, to be like, I'm just erasing.
Yeah,
because
the
it's
non-destructive way of creating. Gotta love that.
Yeah, definitely. So sometimes I've created like duplicates of layers and then done erasing and stuff like that. But yeah, this is great. And once I'm happy, I will probably just merge things down and flatten things. But while I'm creating, this helps me a lot to be quite free when I'm erasing, rather than being like, okay, I need to get this perfect first time around.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Daryl in the chat had a question. How does Rich cope with the overstimulation that comes with ADHD, with all the things that he wants to do creatively?
I write stuff down on a board or on in a book. I have classes about this, and I write things down. Like, I really want to do this, and I write it down for 3 or 4 different things. Because when you say I really want to do something, as an ADHD person, we have quite a few things that we really want to do. But when you say really, you just filter out a ton of different stuff. Like, it seems very simple, but it works big time. And then you come up with a reason why you want to do it. And oftentimes that filters a bunch of stuff out. You're like, oh, these are terrible reasons. Like, that's the worst. And so sometimes I then come up with a reason and then find something better that fits the reason to work on. And then other times I'm like, okay, this is just because I want money, or because I'm bored, or I just want fame, or whatever, terrible reasons. Ditch those. And so I end up working on stuff that fits my purpose, my why, has a really good reason behind it, and stuff that I really want to work on. And that helps me a lot. And then to get started is easy. It's like not a problem for an ADHD person. To stay focused on it is very difficult. And so again, I'm just going to be like, timers, just use the timers to be like, I'm just going to start on this today again for 5 minutes. I'm just going to start on this again for 5 minutes. You just carry on doing that every single day. And you line up all these little things that you can do that make up this big project. Because a big project, I think ADHD people struggle with dopamine. Like we don't get enough dopamine. So we're always seeking something little to do to get that little piece of dopamine. So if we were like doing a website, just be like, I'm gonna do this little link, and just be like, I've done this little link, check, strike it off. I did that in 5 minutes. It's like, boom, that's how we operate. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, Daryl says, thank you, I'll try that. They also have ADHD, so I think that might be useful.
Cool, awesome. I'm gonna adjust this a little bit because it's very conical and straight. So I'm going to create a new layer here and just make it a little bit more wavy.
Oh, that's pretty cool. I love a good wave.
A good wave. Oh man. In South Africa, I used to surf a lot. So it's one thing that I miss about living in the Netherlands. It's just not having access to a warm ocean with good waves.
Funny how that kind of reminds me of this new campaign. So there's this campaign called Create Waves, and that happened for the first time yesterday. It was in collaboration with the Ocean Agency and Adobe, and they were promoting the fact that we got to save the ocean. And so we were encouraging creators to create illustrations and graphics for the campaign. It was hashtag Create Waves, and we're actually doing that this year again. So it's pretty exciting. Kind of remind me of talking about waves.
Yeah, cool.
Pretty cool.
I'm going to just erase all of this really quickly or mask it away. I saw some really cool stuff on your Twitter the other day. Was it penguins or puffins combined with letters?
Oh, yeah, that was the 36 days of type challenge that I did. So that's the type challenge that happens annually. And I used penguins as my theme to create type out of it. It was fun.
That was really cool. Okay, so now got a little bit of like weird stuff going on here. So now I'm going to just merge this layer down. I think that's everything. All right, there we go. And then just do a little bit of erasing here and there. All right, that looks good. And now I'm going to start adding some color to elements just to see what it looks like. So I'll set this as a reference. And here, it's really easy to do this in Fresco. What I love about this, you just pop your color panel over here. And then let's go for the fill tool. And then boom, let's go for black. But initially this does this really weird like color thing, but it's a color margin thing. So I just pull it up all the way to 255. I can bring it down a bit later on if I need to. And what's great about this is that I can do some really cool gradient stuff on top of this in just a mo. And then instead of doing the coloring all on one layer, pretty much every color gets its own layer. So I'll do this on the.
So did you use that as a reference layer or? Oh yeah, it is.
This is a reference layer.
Okay.
So I have a bunch of different purples because sometimes one purple is actually better than another. Like those colors are really, really nice. I love working with these purples and pinks.
I love purple. One purple is not enough. I totally get that.
One purple is not enough.
I love it.
Right.
Rick in the chat says, great suggestion. I always leave something easy to complete quickly at the start of the next day. It makes it really easy to get started. Yeah. There you go.
I mean, even with this project, man, guys, just with this, like you can see me filling these eyes. Like this fill tool in Fresco is so quick. Like it just, I was gonna say it breaks my heart, but it's not. It's just like it fixes my heart. It just makes me so happy. Like look at that. I just filled up all those eyes. It was just like boop, quick. But yeah, going back to what Rick said about leaving something easy on the next day, what I liken it to is like this downward hill. Like just put that little rock there between you and the cart, so that the next day just pull it out and pew, you're downhill again, rather than being like, push it up a hill, let's go. Like, start on something easy. And so if I do something like this, sometimes what I'll do is I'll quickly sketch 3 or 4 new ideas for the next day, because that's what happens a lot of the time. Like, I'm stuck, I don't know what to draw, I'm not going to draw, sorry. And so you just make it easy for yourself.
Yeah, I love that analogy. Not going uphill but downhill. Yeah, I'm gonna put that in my head for future. Think I might need it. Might come in handy.
Yeah. Okay, so now I'm going to do the birds. Set as reference, I'm going to go for a blue, which
so when you
pretty much always do for the birds.
Oh, interesting. So when you selected the bird layer as reference, was the other layer automatically disabled as reference? Is that what happened?
Yeah. Which I really like is that you can say like set reference, but you can also say release reference instead of trying to find the layer that is referenced, or then saying set reference and then release reference. So on any layer, you can just tap and say release reference or set reference.
Nice. Yeah, I did not know that.
Pretty it is cool. Powerful.
It is indeed.
On these eyes, the bird eyes, what I'm going to do is fill in black and white on the same layer, because I don't normally do any gradients in the bird eyes.
Yeah.
And then it also just reduces the amount of layers. So I don't use like layers unnecessarily. If that makes sense.
So do you always merge all the layers in the end, or do you keep it as is?
No, they're all just layers, and I export it as a Photoshop document and keep that as an original, because then I can change the layers and the colors and whatever. But then I'll export it as a PNG after that. And then for the eye bags, this is what it really irritates me about any app, is I just tap the wrong place and it fills all around. I'm like, who actually wants to do that? Not me. So we're filling the eye bags now. Next will be these little crest feathers, which I'll go for a red, which I normally do, but it's just because it's what's comfortable for me. But I've definitely used different colors from red to yellow for the bird's plumage. Is that the right word? I don't know. The colors over there. Sometimes I forget that I need to fill in the odd little shapes here and there. Oh, there's actually another bird down here. We almost forgot about you, Mr. Bird.
Oh, yeah, we did. I didn't even see you there. Yeah.
Yeah, at times, oh man, it's so weird in the NFT world, because most of the time, once you upload an image and you mint it, it's done.
Yeah.
And I've actually seen some mistakes in some of my artwork. I've been like, oh, that eye doesn't have any white in it, and all the rest do.
Oh no. Well, I'm gonna go find some of those NFTs.
Oh yeah, you can expose me. Be like, this guy's a fraudulent guy.
No, I absolutely love it. So how has your experience been creating NFTs? Do you feel like your process has been streamlined now that you've been doing it for 100 days?
Yeah, it is a very interesting space. Let me tell you that, because it feels like, when Instagram came out, it made everybody a photographer. And I think a lot of photographers were like, oh, flip, like, what does that mean for me? What I'm doing now, just so everyone knows, is that these legs are going to be in the black. So you can't see them. So I'm actually just creating white legs so that you can see the legs. But yeah, it's made everyone an instant artist. And so what's terrible about it is that, sure, there's a lot of scams and there's a lot of scams. Yeah, that's the word. There's tons of scammers. It's just like, guys, come on. This is absolutely ridiculous how many scams there are. But it also means that the people with the loudest voices normally win. So people who have like thousands or millions of followers can be like, guys, hi, I made this terrible piece of art, but come buy it. And people buy it. And other people are like Dali's, like, I've done this amazing thing. And no one comes because they just don't have the following or whatever. And so, with the AI world, there's a ton of really good AI advancements at the moment. So people can be like, I want a Dali landscape with some birds, and a computer basically just spits out this image. You're like, okay, refine this, ta-da, download it, post it as an NFT, and somebody buys that because they're like, wow, that's awesome. And you could sell it for fairly cheap or really expensive. And people buy that. And I'm like, guys, you're going to kill artists who are doing the hard graft of hand drawing stuff and developing concepts. It's just like, no, that frustrates me.
I feel like there's a good mix between the generated artwork and also like artists. And I mostly felt like when we were first diving into NFT space, there was a lot of motion stuff first. And then people started finding it that, hey, we can use it for photographs, or we can use it for video, or we can use it for illustrations. So it's a very interesting space just to be aware of and know about. And I know you have the Doodleverse collection, which is pretty cool to see. There's a lot of colors. So I'm excited to see all of this come together. Wait, what is that? Is that an insect? What is that?
So these are tongues.
Oh, nice.
And it's actually like, it's like a worm tongue. So it's kind of like a bit of a play. It's like, does the bird have a worm in its tongue or whatever? Or like, I don't actually know what's going on there, but they are worm tongues, which are pretty cool.
I love that. And I also, since you pointed out the worm tongue, I want to say that the wings kind of look like hands.
Okay.
Which is so fun.
Some of the time they don't look like wings at all. So what I've done here by mistake is like doodled on top of things, which I could have avoided, but I'm now just going to erase these little doodles. There we go.
Love that. And we had a question earlier a little bit about why not use Illustrator for what you're doing and not Fresco, is it? I think we answered that earlier in the stream, but just as a gist, it's a matter of choice and the matter of flexibility and ease of access that you can use Fresco with Illustrator and Photoshop as well. So I think there's like a system requirements page Wade can share for us, and you can look at. It's a free app. You can use it on your iPad and even your Windows devices. So I would definitely highly recommend, even if you just want to try it and see for yourself.
I mean, I like there's some more black leg. I was like, what's going on here? I really like Illustrator, but I grew up using it for logos and never for illustrations. So I'm always like, like I could, but then I would have to spend, I don't know, it feels like I'd have to spend hours in Illustrator doing stuff like this. And I don't quite get this like this wiggly handmade kind of effect. It feels like Illustrator is great for making things perfect, which, sometimes I am a bit of a perfectionist.
Yeah, I love that. You're right about the hours. But with the power of like brushes, there are tons of things that you can do, especially if you have like a graphics tablet. With the mouse, it's sort of difficult at times, but definitely with the graphics tablet, for sure. Doable.
But I guess it's also just like, perhaps if I spend some time on it, like that would be great. Like I have a Wacom tablet, but I can't move it off my desk. Whereas my iPad is like, it goes with me everywhere. So I can be on the couch using it. And I know there's Illustrator on iPad, which I've played around with, but Fresco, I think, came first. So I just got used to it. And sometimes it's like, well, why change something when you're used to something? And I know it's not vector, so you can't scale it up, but it's great for what I need it for.
Absolutely.
So
it's a
what I'm doing now is
at this point.
What I call the fourth dimension. And there's stars and stuff. And what I like to do is put stars like behind things. So I don't just like to doodle in like this space here, but like do a star here that goes behind the blue wall. So it feels like there's dimension to it. There's something behind it. And it kind of just messes with space or perspective or something like that. But what I did want to do was add some tiger stripes because it was going to be a tiger tree. So I'm going to do that over here with a new layer. And yeah, what I've come to realize is that, you're allowed to play with themes. And in the Doodleverse, I set no rules. So I'm like, look, if the birds are blue one day and red the next day, that's cool. Like, that's allowed to happen.
Yeah.
And if you want to draw tiger stripes every day, like, that's great, because it's a dream. Like, you can have recurring dreams, and then the dream, could be different one day compared to the next. I'm also just going to group all of these bird layers for now.
Let's do it.
So
Have you ever drawn on the wrong
them.
layer? Does that happen to you?
Yeah, all the time. And then I'm like, no, this is terrible.
It happens to me a lot when I'm sometimes doing traditional drawing for unwinding and just for practice. I sometimes double tap to undo, and I'm like, wait, this is not working. What did
Man,
I do
I do
wrong?
that all the time. I'm like, oh, yeah, this is not going to work. But I mean,
Yeah.
I just think about, like, the masters of 20th century art, like what they would be doing with the technology that we have now. Like, imagine just being like, with a paintbrush, no, actually I'm going to undo. Let me try again. Oh no, undo. Like,
Yeah.
they would have to like wait for things to dry and then paint again, and it would just be so slow, And I'm going, cool, I'm going to create 7 pieces this week.
Yeah.
What are you going to be up to, Dali? And he's like, good question. Like, I'm just going to create this one piece this week. Actually, I don't know how, prolific they were when they were creating art. I also know they didn't have TV and social media and all that kind of stuff. So maybe they could have also created, 7 in 1 week.
Yeah.
So that's looking pretty interesting. I think, yeah, I'd like to erase this area over here. Maybe just join it like that.
Yeah, I love that. I love how it also shapes and defines that it's growing upwards. All the lines also define that, which I really like.
So let's merge that down. This is always something I'm like, oh, that looks pretty interesting. So maybe in the future, I'll draw with outlines, and this could be a cool experimentation to be like, fill things and then remove the lines. So there's still lines, but they're not black.
Yeah. Very cool to work on negative space like that. I always love that technique of hiding the lines.
Now I don't know what's happened because there's a reference layer that's been set. Like, I fill something and it's like, nope, that's not what I wanted. And again, this is just so quick with the fill tool. Like, I get really happy when I do this. It's like I spend so much time doing the line work, and then to do the color work, it's like, woo, just super quick. Okay, I can pull that back. We can put that back. Okay, so here I'm noticing that there's a bunch of eyes that you can't really see. So I might just remove one of these birds. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this layer.
Yeah.
Actually, I won't duplicate it just yet. I'll do some gradienting in here. So I'm going to create a new layer, do the clipping mask. And then I have a Kyle brush, which is a spatter. I always thought it was splatter, but it's spatter for some reason. And just do a little bit of gradienting, but it's more like spray painting or airbrushing. And I kind of introduced this maybe 2 weeks ago. I just used to leave all the birds flat, but then I was like, ooh, actually, this looks really, really good.
Love that. Yeah, Wade in the chat says, if you name all your layers right layer, you're always drawing on the right layer. Hashtag problem solver. I love that.
So good. Although you can't name your layers here, I don't think.
You can. So that's like, yeah. So at the top,
Okay.
there you go.
I don't think I've ever named my layer in Fresco. Maybe I should start that. Yeah, there's some weird things. I'm like, oh, yeah, definitely haven't done that before in Fresco. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. Now what I can do is duplicate it. And I'll hide this one, flatten this one, which is merge layers and group. And then I can cut this guy. Hmm.
Are we using the lasso tool? Lasso selection there?
Yeah, sorry, yeah. And then
Nice.
let's cut you and let's paste you. Thanks. And you can just
Hide it.
go away right now. And all of the eyes here. Oh, it's because this guy is still here. So I included too many layers in this flattened one. So I'm just going to undo.
Undo a bunch of times.
Yeah.
Oh, is the eyes from the tree also in that group?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So can I move this back? Yeah, we go. Okay, so let's do this again. Duplicate layer group, and then we will merge layers, and I will hide this one. And then lasso tool. Let's do this again. And there's sometimes like this, I'm like, what did I just do? I do not understand what is going on. And it takes me a while. Sometimes I have to redo a lot.
Yeah,
so there we
when
go.
you
I
have so
think
many layers, sometimes that's an issue.
Yeah. So I think that looks a bunch better. Over here, again, maybe I messed up something. There's a bunch of, maybe it's not, maybe it's just how it looks. Sorry, I'm just muttering under my breath. Oh no, that's good. All good. I was like, this looks weird.
It's all part of the process. We're here for it.
I did clip this guy's tongue. So let's.
Oh, I just saw that. That's one of the NFTs.
One, yeah. Can I just deselect this? Okay, let's just be patient. Okay. There we go. What I love about Fresco is you can do that and then just tap as well. So it's like the best of both worlds.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, hopefully this is the final time I'm going to be doing this. Just paste that guy and hide him. Okay, that looks good. So there's quite a bit of detail that I'd still like to add in the background, but I'm going to do some more coloring for now, and then coloring of the different elements and layers. And then I'll add details either later or after the stream. The details do take quite a bit of time, and you guys might be like, oh my days, I'm done watching this guy add feathers. Like, this is just ridiculous. I'm
sure nobody feels that way, but yes, I'll take it.
So this is a great thing about.
Agrees. We had the exact last. I think this is about the layer naming. There's a bit of a lag when we're streaming, so I think that's what Wade's talking about. But Wade says we had that exact question with last week's illustrator. You're in good company, Rich. Oh, I think the layer naming thing. Yeah, yeah. It's a fairly common, frequently asked question. Yeah.
Like, I'd love to, I talk about this, Elon Musk's brain machine interface, just to be like, yeah, just rename that this. Rename that. But if you have to tap on it and tap rename, or actually type it out, or use your pencil, like, it's a mission.
Siri, rename my layer to right layer.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm glad my Siri did not wake up. Made that mistake.
So here I'm just doing a little bit of, I don't know, airbrushing, spray painting, or whatever. And then what I love about Fresco is this little, I don't know what it's called, but this thing here, if I hold it, touch modifier. If I double tap on it, it's like active. And so this now erases with the same brush that I'm currently using, which is just like amazing.
Magic. I love it.
Just a little bit of erasing. Lovely. And so this, I don't know, it just makes the piece come alive when you start bringing these gradients into it. Which I didn't realize at first, but then I kind of was like, this piece needs something. And then I just almost had to do it every single time. And so it's become part of the Doodleverse, part of my style now, to be like, okay. And again, like, if you look at this, it's a bunch of little dots. And so in Illustrator, it's like, oh, well, this could just be really smooth gradients. but this feels better because I'm actually drawing, and it makes it look very unique. It looks spray painted, or maybe even like pencil crayon, like I'm shading with a pencil crayon.
Yeah, it does have that organic handmade feel to it. James agrees. James says so satisfying to watch. Yeah, I agree. I'm just taken. I don't have any words to describe how I am feeling about how satisfying this is.
So now just, I don't know, it feels like there's a lot more depth here. It's like, ooh, like
Mm-hmm.
all of a sudden, like there's popping colors, you
Yeah.
know? I'm going to add a little bit more at the top here and go for a darker blue. I could go for black. But, you know, when you look up at the night sky, where is this? Oh, you know what's happening is that all of these,
Oh, the eyes
the eyes aren't actually colored, but it's because I also haven't done a clipping mask. That will sort it.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. But if you look up at the night sky or like the sky at sunrise or sunset, man, the colors are just beautiful. So when people are like, well, so where did you get these colors from? I'm like, have you looked at the sky recently? Like, these are all sky colors, you know?
Yeah.
I'm going to add a little bit of dark pink down here too.
So do you often find your inspiration from nature and all the colors in your work?
It's really tough to answer that. Like, I was, sitting in church the other day, looking at the stained glass windows. We have this like modern church in this really old building, like Catholic, old school, 17th, 16th century building in Amsterdam. It's beautiful, but there's stained glass windows everywhere. And I'm like, inspired by the stained glass windows, like the colors in them, the line work in them. I kind of feel like they were doodling. Maybe they took a little bit more time to do a stained glass window than I took to do a Doodleverse piece. But it's like, yes, I love looking at that. I'm walking around Amsterdam and I'm looking at the steeples and the turrets and the architecture, and I get inspired by that. Then I'm outside, like looking at these tiny flowers and dandelions because my babe is just like fascinated and fixated on them. I'm like, ooh, look at that. Or I'm reading one of her children's books. There's a lot of cool illustration in children's books.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, I suddenly have an idea for a Doodleverse piece. So yes to inspiration. And I think the key part about inspiration is that you need to be creating. Because if you're just getting inspired and not creating, I don't know why I'm doing pink up there. I was planning to do blue up there. If you're not creating while you're getting inspired, it's almost like you're just getting fat.
Yeah.
Which is
love it. Everyone is loving the stream. Very fun stream. This is a neat stream and beautiful art. It has come together so quickly, and lovely to watch the doodling. It just feels so natural and not forced. Yeah, I think the idea behind this piece as a viewer is that just do whatever you want to do and not overthink the direction with what you're creating. And I really like that. And the inspiration part and drawing from everyday life and thinking of it like the world is your oyster is actually kind of true with what you described. And I love that.
Yeah. I think there's just, there's so much inspiration out there. I have a class called Get Inspired, Explore Your City. Like I have a beautiful city, but just walking around my neighborhood, which is outside of Amsterdam, it is inspiring. You see these like weird little details, and you're like, what? That is just crazy. Like, man. So I definitely encourage people to get outside, go explore, rather than just sitting on Pinterest the whole day. Pinterest is nice, but there's stuff out there that it like works in your brain while you're walking and mixes with all the other things that you're seeing, and fresh air, and it just helps a lot.
Yeah, I agree.
Or maybe go into Pinterest for 10 minutes and go for a walk outside. That could be
best of both worlds. Yeah.
Potent,
I love that approach.
It's not a little bit of gradienting.
Go ahead, sorry.
Carry on.
No.
I've done some gradienting on the tiger stripes. It also looks kind of weird because it kind of looks like they're like set in a little bit, like like they're just behind it, but they're also part of the tree. But then the stars and stuff are also behind that, which is really cool.
Love it. Yes, Tony says you've shown me the real uses of Fresco, and your instruction is very inspiring, Rich. Love that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you
I
for being
don't
here,
know what these
Stony, and
layers
everyone joining
are.
us. I think we have about 30 minutes left in the stream. So I want to say thank you to everyone. The time really flies when you're having fun, and I love it. I love to learn. So I had a question about the gradients. Do you ever use the gradients as like the light and shadows, or do you not consider that when you're creating gradients with colors? Like, would
Mm,
the tiger stripes have a darker color on the gradient just because the bird is in front? Just to depict that, hey, the bird was here, and so now there's a shadow on the gradient for the tiger stripe.
no, no, I don't think I've ever done that. But I'm not opposed to it. I was doing
Mhm.
a live stream the other day, and one of
Yeah.
the guys said, "Why don't you like make it glow?" And I was like, "Right
Hmm.
now, I don't feel like doing that, but let me try."
Yeah.
So I tried, and yeah, it didn't really work. I was like, "Well, like it could work, but also,
Hmm.
I don't know about this."
Yeah.
So, it could work one day, but
That
yeah,
glow
at the
gives me
moment,
an idea. I
what's
know you
that?
mentioned that you haven't explored the motion tools in Fresco.
Yeah,
The glow could be like a blink, color blink, like a neon sign. I know we were talking about that a little earlier. So it could be
yeah.
like a neon glow on and off thing with like motion and Fresco. That could be fantasy.
Man, I'm telling you, like, if I had more time, I would love to pretty much
Time.
animate every single piece. Like, can you imagine like these birds, even just like the wings moving slightly, or,
Mhm.
you know, a ton of them just flying by, and all of these eye leaves like moving from left to right and stuff. Like,
Yeah.
it would be amazing. Like, I would love to employ people to do that. Like, not because I can't, but just because
Yeah.
I guess what appeals to me about the Doodleverse is that I can have lots of ideas about it and then
Hmm.
still execute them relatively quickly. Whereas something like a business idea, it's like, I have 14 business ideas. Okay, for the next 5 years, you pick one and that's it. It's like, oh, okay. After 2 weeks, I'm starting my new business again, but it's a new idea. Like, that's
Hmm.
just not going to fly with me. Whereas this, it's like I get to just keep on creating within this little Doodleverse box over and
Yeah.
over and over again with new ideas. Um, so, don't know if I'm the biggest fan of this like intense purple, which check this out now. So if I unclipping mask that, create a new layer, I'm just going to set
Hmm.
this as or release the reference. I'm going to try something now. Let's go for perhaps a blue. Fill
Hmm.
this
Yeah.
pixel, and then I then create a clipping mask. So then it creates the clipping mask over there, which looks pretty interesting.
Hmm.
Um, so then I merge that down, and then here I create a clipping mask. And this is the power of using layers instead of all your colors on one layer, is that I was able to change that color very, very quickly.
Yeah.
And I think that looks pretty good. I like it.
I love it.
Okay. So how much time do I have left? Like not a lot,
Um,
right?
we have 30 minutes, exactly 30 minutes from now.
3-0.
30. Yeah.
Oh, that's plenty of time. I thought I had 3 more minutes.
Oh, no. Yeah, we have 30 minutes.
What? That is intensely crazy. Okay. Feeling so much more comfortable right now.
Nice. I'm glad. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So let's do some details. I'm going to choose my brush again, go to this hard round. And here, hello. What is going on? Oh, it's because it's up there.
I did not know that's what you doodle. I'm like, oh, I can't
Oh,
find it.
it's like, okay, so let's try this again. Details on top of everything.
Mm-hmm. Oh, look at
There we
that.
go.
The worm looking tongue. Now it's all coming together. I love
Yeah.
it. So, do you ever color your line work as well? I know with Doodleverse, it's all black lines, but do you plan on using that as a variation?
So
Maybe
I
use a
think
darker
tomorrow
blue.
yeah, I think tomorrow I'd like to try something like that. And
Yeah.
again, like I have a ton of ideas and I'm like, oh, what about this? What about that?
Yeah.
But because I've, struck upon this thing which is doing pretty well, it's like where my ideas are spreading forth at the moment
Yeah.
is the content rather than the style. So the
Yeah.
style is like, oh, let me try this, like a little tweak here, a little tweak there. But like big things like, oh, let's color the line work. I often save things like, let me show you here. Like here, this is a piece that I did the other day, but I didn't use this yellow part.
Yeah.
But I was like, oh, it looks like gold dust or something. Like, that's cool.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I'm not going to use it. And then maybe there's a couple of other examples. I don't know. But it's like, I'll save something and be like, oh, I really like that. Look at the black there. It didn't end up being black, but black and yellow works really well. So oftentimes it'll be a happy mistake or just be like, oh, yeah, that works really, really well.
Gotta love the happy
I'll save it.
accidents.
Yeah. Who's that from? It's from Bob
Ross. Yeah.
Yeah. Someone once said that Rich Armstrong is an energetic Bob Ross. And I was like, what a
I was gonna say
great
that
compliment.
when we first met. Yeah.
That's great.
I think I saw your Skillshare creative workouts course, and that's what I felt when I first saw it. The first trailer video, and I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I love the intonation and the talking style.
Oh man, Bob Ross, that guy's like, I just like did this, and look, I have an amazing piece just in like 2 seconds. And
just like that. Yeah.
How did you do that? That's ridiculous. Yep. Yeah. The only thing that I've been able to do like that quickly is digital marbling. And I know that Fresco actually has a marbling tool, which I'm pretty keen to check out tomorrow. It's just like, oh, I can make marbling pieces pretty quickly now. I know some people struggle, but it's like, yeah, we can do stuff like that pretty quickly now.
Love it. Yeah. Vague degrees, details. That's where I have to be careful. Talk about needing time. Absolutely. Yeah. It's hard to find the right balance between when to stop and when you're actually happy with the piece.
Yeah, it's really hard. And it's like the colors, like some of my pieces, I'm like, wow, for some reason the colors here worked super well. And even if I'm like, I go back and I look at that piece and I'm like, oh, cool, I'll use the same colors. For some reason, it's like, oh, the colors don't work so well here, which is weird. But then you could spend days just being like, okay, what about this color? What about that color? What about this combination? And, that becomes quite dangerous because then you never ship anything.
Yeah,
and I found that.
Yeah, the client, it being a client illustration, that really can set like where to stop, even if you're not 100% happy with it. I mean, that can happen sometimes because of timelines.
Yeah. And even, it's really hard with personal work.
Absolutely. Yeah. With personal work, you can just go on forever. I feel that. Yeah. When do you call a project done? Is it ever done?
Yeah. Working on these bigger pieces. So these are 2048 by 2048. I'm working on ones that are 4 times the size, so like 4K resolution. And they're called dynamic NFTs. So they change state based on the time of day. So there's like a sunrise version, a daytime version, nighttime version, etc.
Nice.
But they take so long to do. And it's like I, for some reason, decided to do tower cities. So it's just like tower upon tower upon tower. And it takes a long time to do that. And so,
is that up on your Behance?
No, not yet.
Okay.
There's a few things that I'm not up just because I'd rather be drawing than putting stuff up on my Behance. But yeah, it'll get there. I would like to create 5 tower cities before I post the project. just because I think it will look better as a series, and then showcase like how I made them, the technology behind them,
Yeah,
etc.,
I know
etc.
that you have a few projects featured in the Fresco library, the Fresco gallery that we have on Behance. Is there,
Yeah.
do you have any recommendations for folks? I know a lot of us always are inspired by those features. Did you plan out the Behance studies? How did that come about?
Yeah, I just posted stuff. Um,
Yeah.
Plain and simple. I remember last year, oh, actually, I don't know. In COVID time, it's like, who knows when last year actually was. But at some point, Adobe
Mhm.
contacted me and was like, we really like this piece. It was a collaboration piece between myself and another teacher on Skillshare.
Mhm.
And they were like, this is amazing. And it was something that I did in Adobe Fresco and they did in Illustrator. And it was a combination of grid work and just like abstract
Yeah.
stuff. It was called, I don't know what it was called, but it was really cool. We had a lot of fun. I tried some new stuff. And so Adobe were like, cool, we want to license this artwork. And I was like, cool, if you like it, then I'll start creating some more stuff like that. So I did like another series like that, used the same kind of process,
Mhm.
and they featured it. And I was like, yeah, awesome. So
Yeah.
the thing
I,
is, I read somewhere, they were like, look,
mhm.
if you write a book and you finish that book, don't sit around waiting for people to congratulate you and buy the book and for you to become a millionaire. As soon as you finish the book, start writing the next one. It's like, even if you produce this masterpiece, one book is not going to be how you get your name out there. You get your name out there by just producing really high quality stuff over and over again, by talking, chatting in communities, by connecting with people in the real world. Like I went to a client, not a client, I just went to a company and I said, look, I really like your men's underwear, your boys' underwear. It's rad. I have the
Yeah.
style. Do
Yeah.
you want me to design something for you? They're like, we like your style. Yes, please. So I'm like,
Mhm.
great. So I think that do that. If you like know somebody at Adobe, or if you want to send your stuff in and be like, it's really good. This is why it's really good. This is the story behind it.
Mhm.
See what happens. Or you just keep on posting it there. You keep on telling people about it. And then don't spend too much time looking at how many people did or didn't look at your work. Just
Yeah.
create more work.
Absolutely.
Like,
Yeah. Have 100 days of just creating. Maybe that 190th day you realize that this is your style. And then that sparks more creativity for the next 100 days. I love that. Yeah. And I have a lot of the new friends joining in chat. We have Claudie and Ryan. Hey, welcome everyone. To all of us who are just joining us, we have a little over 20 minutes left here with Rich. So if you have any last minute pressing questions, make sure to ask them both on YouTube and on Behance. And if you're watching this on YouTube, you can hop on over to Behance just because I can read your questions right here. And I love the idea. Putting yourself out there is super inspiring for me. I feel like a lot of the artists, as us artists and creators, we're introverts and it's hard for
yeah.
us to put ourselves out there, just like our work out in the world. So that's like really important and show the work that you want to be hired for. So I love that. Yeah, just put yourself out there and pitch your ideas to the clients you want to work with. That's a great tip right there.
And I think, like especially when it comes to client work,
Mm-hmm.
um, what I've realized is that, playing where everybody else is playing is probably not the best strategy. Like everyone's like, oh, look at your nice Instagram profile. But I'm like, to be honest, like the people that follow me on my Instagram profile are a
Yeah.
bunch of creatives. And I love that because I teach creatives and I want to help creatives.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't sell to creatives. Creative people aren't my clients. I want
Yeah.
companies and CEOs and creative directors to be my clients. They hang
Yeah.
out on LinkedIn. So go hang out on
Yeah.
LinkedIn to be like, hi, I'm the creative guy in the business place. Do you
Mm-hmm.
want to hire me? Like go
Yeah.
meet people on LinkedIn, go to meetups. So you
Mm-hmm.
got to find out where your client or your customer or your target audience hangs out and go hang out there
Absolutely.
rather than on Instagram, because everybody's on Instagram. And even if like 1,000 or 1 million people like your stuff on Instagram and they're all not your target audience, like
Mm-hmm.
What, like, cool, you've got a big following, so you could, monetize that, or, take advantage of that, or whatever. But
Yeah,
if you wanted to do client work, well, you need to get somewhere else.
absolutely. Yeah, that is a great tip about finding your niche and the target audience.
And I
I do
found,
feel, yeah.
in this NFT world, like
Mm-hmm.
literally none of my Instagram followers were
Yeah.
NFT people. Like, I don't care about NFTs. Like, you can teach me how to make NFTs and how to make money and how to sell stuff, but I haven't had one person buy an NFT or be almost remotely interested in buying an
Mm-hmm.
NFT who follows me on Instagram, which is like crazy, right?
Yeah, I would not expect it because it's like a common notion about NFTs that if you have a great following and if you have 100,000 followers, it's easier for you to have like a target audience and for them to be buying your artwork. But it's very
Yeah.
different when it comes to just followers and also people who are actually interested in buying your artwork. So I
Yeah.
think
I
that adds
mean,
up. So how did you
like,
find your audience when it came to NFTs and selling them? Is it
well,
Twitter that helped you with that? Or just the artwork speaking for itself? Because I can imagine that happening as well.
yeah, I mean, it's a very tricky question, and different people will give you different answers. But
Hmm.
basically, at the moment, there are more NFTs than there are websites in the world.
Yeah.
There's a ton of really good quality art, and there's also terrible art as well.
Hmm.
But just one collector could
Yeah.
basically fund your whole life. If they're like, I love your stuff, that's
Yeah.
all you need. Literally,
Yep.
that's all you need. So I have 66 pieces at the moment and 33 collectors of my pieces on one particular blockchain. On all the
Hmm.
other blockchains that I've tried out, nothing, no one, which is really interesting. And the way that I got into this is because somebody that I did a workshop with last year said, hey, you
Hmm.
should really meet this guy. He's also an ideas creative genius person. You guys should chat. So I was like, okay, cool. Let's chat. Let's see what this is about. And we chatted, and he said, yeah, I've had some, really good success on the Avalanche blockchain, and we have this group Discord thing, and it's a lot of fun, and there's collectors. And I'm like, all right, well, cool. Let me try that out. And so I tried it out, and I got connected to collectors, and the rest is history. And as soon as one person buys your stuff, it legitimizes it.
Yeah.
And somebody else is like, oh,
They
yeah,
bought it. This must be cool.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And so
Yeah.
when you have 33 people that have bought
Hmm.
your stuff, when you list another piece, it's like, yes, I want that. Sure, my
Yeah.
art has got a lot better. I mean, let me quickly show you the first Doodleverse thing that I did. And this is
Hmm.
after some also pretty average stuff as well. So this one was an animated one, but can you see how basic it looks right now? And it looks a lot more fun than almost spiritual or religious. Whereas the
Yeah.
one that I'm working on now is
Saving on
coming.
the fly. Yeah. There you go.
It feels a lot more dynamic, and there's a
Yeah.
lot more depth to it. It's like, ooh, this is saying something really interesting. So,
Yeah. It shows
like
you
I'm
to add to that, I think that the gradient adds the depth to the illustration while the birds and the clouds show the movement and how dynamic it is. And the fact
yeah.
that the worm tongues, it's almost like the birds are eating their tongue as they go. So I
Yeah.
think it's really, really fun.
So yeah, I guess to answer the question, it's like, okay, you need to find people and connect with real people.
Yeah.
That is step number one. No matter what you're doing, you can't just put your work out into the void. It doesn't work like
Mhm.
that.
Mhm.
So I've learned a lot about marketing. I'm just going
Yeah.
to add a little bit of detail here and there, just
Yeah.
little dots,
Mhm.
maybe even some black stars, which are interesting because stars aren't normally black, but this is the Doodleverse, so anything
Yeah.
can happen.
Anything goes. Yeah.
so yeah, like going back to like just 2 collectors or 3 collectors, like could set you up for life. I mean, one of the reasons I got into NFTs was because in 2018, I listed some stuff. I had no idea what an NFT was back then. I was like,
Yeah.
I mean, someone wants to pay for my digital version and I can list like 45 of them. And I was like, this is weird, but okay, let me try it out. Like, won't harm. And then
Mm-hmm.
last year, I just got like 3 or 4 random sales. Like, it's like,
Yeah.
who are these people and why are they buying my stuff? And then I converted it into euros. And I'm like, that's a lot of money for something I did in 20 minutes. Like,
Yeah.
wow, that is crazy.
Not to
But
undersell
then,
that though, because that also comes with experience and efficiency and you doing it for over 15 years. So it's not just 20 minutes, it's the 15 years of experience and hard work and persistence and consistency is what it is.
exactly.
Yeah.
But I was just like, this is crazy. Like, what is going on here? Then I saw a couple of other people that I follow on Instagram selling works for like $80,000. And I'm like, sorry, what? Someone's buying that for that much?
Let's change the prices.
let's just try this
Let's
NFT
make
thing.
some
And I think
modifications and adjustments. Yeah.
I think a lot of people were like, oh yeah, let's try that too. But you know, it all came down to following and who you were and who you knew. So
Yeah.
it's very important to spend time marketing and networking, but effectively, not just like, just put some stuff on Instagram. It's like, yeah, but who are your followers? If all of your followers are not your client people, and even if you get a ton of likes and stuff, like, so what? So Twitter for me is where the NFT game happens, and that's where my collectors are. And I focus on a particular blockchain, and I engage with people, I engage with their projects, I comment, I give feedback. I even do stuff for free because it's a really cool community. So whatever your niche is, whatever your thing is, find the people, like the real people behind it. Find an in somewhere. And sometimes that's the real hard part. Like you could draw for days, but like Vincent van Gogh did, he created a bunch of stuff, but I think he only sold 2 pieces in his lifetime because he wasn't very good at marketing.
Absolutely. I
really
agree.
Sad.
We have to wear multiple hats as a creative. It's not just about drawing, it's also about all of the soft skills we gotta learn. I agree.
Yeah.
Wade also agrees about it's not just 20 minutes. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, some people have agents and stuff, and that's cool. But you still have to sell yourself. You still have to meet the right people.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree with that. Networking and making personal connections is something that really helps in everyone's journey, not just to knowing the right people, but also to speak to having a community. And I feel like that also really helps. You grow and also learn and get inspired by who's around you.
Yeah. I mean, we have a Discord for we call them one-of-one artists, because in the NFT world, there's just generative art, like the profile pictures, so like 10,000 that all look kind of the same, but we're one-of-one artists, so we create unique pieces. And sure, there's like a variance of one-of-one compared to generative stuff. There are a lot of blurry lines, but we give each other feedback. We support each other. We retweet each other's stuff. We tell people this stuff is really good. And at times we buy each other's work to be like, actually, the collectors can not get this one because I want it. So thank you very much for posting it here first, And that's really important to be like, okay, why did this one sell so quickly and why did this one not? And I'm struggling to sell this collection. Like, these are the kind of questions that we help each other answer, which is super helpful. If I was just doing this by myself, I don't know, I might be on something else now because I don't have a community of people to bounce ideas around with.
Absolutely. Yeah, which is why I also love Behance. So when I first started out, I found Behance, and that was a way for me to find creators. I know some of them are in the chat. I know Ryan was in the chat earlier. So those are like kind of my go-to people to like bounce off ideas off of and like get honest feedback and reviews and kind of brainstorm your process and go from there. So having that kind of
That's
relationship
cool.
with the creative in the industry is highly important and recommended.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really important. It's something that I struggle with. I'm like, I want to draw, like not connect with people. And so I'm realizing, oh, actually, it would help for introvert Rich not to be so introverted. And a lot of
Yeah.
people are like, you're not an introvert. I'm like, yeah, I like people, but I'm an introvert. So I'd rather spend time by myself. Like,
Yeah.
that's just who I am. So what I'm doing right now to finish this piece off is adding
Mhm.
some like grain, almost like it's been photocopied or scrunched up in a bunch of areas.
Yeah.
And I like it. It just, again, adds more life and texture and feeling to a piece. It's not just gradients. It's not just smooth line work. And sometimes I have overdone it. So then like
Mhm.
erase it a little bit. But
Is
it
it the
just,
same spatter brush that you're using for this as well?
it's a slightly different one. It's a lighter one. So it's not just like
Mhm.
like a bulldozer. It's just like a light touching of some spatter.
Just a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then I'll also do a little bit of spatter inside the fourth dimension area,
Mm-hmm.
but I'll do it with white.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Way to play on the
Just
negative
to
space
add
again.
a little bit. Maybe I'll also add a little bit of pink at the bottom, just to bring a bit of like hope or sunrise into
Mm-hmm.
the mix.
Mm-hmm.
That could be pretty cool. Oh yeah, I like this piece. So sometimes I've added a sun, but I think this piece is looking really good just by itself. There's some clouds.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the time I add eyes to the clouds, but I think because there's so many eyes on the tree,
Yeah.
I don't need to add more eyes to the piece. And by now you'd be like, wow, you've got a lot of layers. It's like, yeah, I do, but I kind of know where things are. And if I
Mm-hmm.
don't, then I start grouping them like I did with the bird layers.
Yeah,
And that helps a
absolutely. And
lot.
layers are free. You can create absolutely infinite number of layers in Fresco if your iPad allows you to. But
Yeah.
the app doesn't have any limitations. So I feel like that is really helpful for people who use layers a lot. And especially with texture and you want to change it and make it non-destructive. I love that. It
Yeah.
is. We do have one question, and I will say that we have about 5 minutes left here with Rich for today. So if you have any last minute
Awesome.
questions, make sure to pop them in the chat. With that said, we have a question by James. Rich, do you ever place tiny Easter eggs in your detailed works like this, like callbacks to other pieces or messages?
I might have. I can't think of anything right now.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe I have. Like
Yes. So when we come
if
back
I'm
tomorrow, you got to look
if
at
I
all the Doodleverse NFTs and find that piece.
well, can somebody do that for me? It would be great. But it's like if I get stuck on like, oh, what should I do tomorrow? Sometimes I'm like, okay, on this particular piece, like what happens next in the story? Like, what does this tiger tree do? What happens to the eyes? Like, where are the birds going? Where do they come
Yeah.
from? Like,
Yeah.
what's on the next frame? You know, so I start to ask questions about the story. And I think for me, what's been really cool about the Doodleverse is the story. It's almost like a stained glass window, or I don't know what they're called, but it's like a religious picture or painting, or even like in the Egyptian pyramids, they had these like stories that were painted. They're not moving, but they're like comic strips or something. But this is like a story in an image. So it's that. It's how can I tell a story
Yeah.
with my work?
Love it. Okay. So we are almost out of time. I would love if you can give us a quick recap of what we did on day one today and what we are going to dive into tomorrow.
Okay, so today we did a Doodleverse piece, and a Doodleverse piece is something like this. I'll just close this all, make it really big, and it's about this Doodleverse, which is a dreamlike universe where anything can happen. There's often different realities or dimensions, and I like drawing eyes a lot, and these birds a lot. And here I've been playing with, I can't remember what it was called again, photo something in
Double exposure. Yeah.
double exposure. There we go. It's like I'm playing 30 seconds or something. Like, can't say the word. You've got to guess it. And we started with planning, which was down here. We can do this. I want to hide all other layers. So we started with this planning, and I had this idea, and then I'm just going to show all others. And we ended up with something like this. We did the line work first. We then did, this is still actually visible. Did the line work first. Then we added some colors. We added some gradients. I did a little bit of details, added some more details, added a few more gradients. And at the very end here, I just want to remove some of this pink. And that just brings a little bit of hope into it. And I also added these like textured elements just to make it feel like it's been printed, or it's not just so clean and doodled. There's texture and life to the actual style.
Love that.
And that's it. I think I'm pretty much done.
Thank you so much, Rich, for teaching us your ways today. I loved hosting you for day one. Rich and I will be back for part 2 tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. Pacific time, experimenting and exploring again in Adobe Fresco. I will say this was amazing. Thank you for teaching us all your creative outlets and workouts and all the process behind your workflow. But I want to say stick around for the Illustrator Creative Challenges with Claudie from Print My Soul up next, followed by a drawing for Mental Health Awareness Month with me as your host. So make sure to stick around for all your Adobe Live programming for today, and we will be back tomorrow. Thanks, Rich, and bye. Thank you all for joining. Bye.
Bye. See you tomorrow.